Hi, everyone. My name is Edie Summers, and welcome to the summit. So, I'm going to be talking today about how to avoid burnout so that you can maximize your content creation. So, I am a content creator, I'm also an author and a business owner. And I do have a background in well being and also specifically on how to improve energy. Um, I'll be talking a little bit about not only chronic fatigue and burnout in general, but then getting into specifics about maybe how you can kind of more manage your energy and avoid burnout so that you can do better, whether it's creating better content and also kind of showing up for people, whether it's in your business or as a content creator or influencer, whatever your role is in terms of creating content for social media or your business. So I'll give you a little bit of a background about me first, just so you have context. Again, like I said, I am an expert when it comes to creating better energy and even dealing with chronic fatigue and burnout. I developed chronic fatigue myself in my early 20s after a ski accident, and I'm not someone who can take prescription drugs. So I actually started having a reaction to a lot of the prescription painkillers and ibuprofen, anti-inflammatories that I was on in physical therapy and also just after surgery. So it's a really long story, but I started getting into alternative health, natural health. Now I am a big believer in integrative health, but my background started in the natural foods industry, and I started learning more and more about kind of natural ways that can improve energy and well-being in your body. And I actually wrote a whole book on the subject. It's called The Memory of Health. It took me 10 years to write. There's a ton of research in it. So, and I do definitely address burnout in there as well a little bit. And like I said, there's a lot of research on chronic fatigue and a lot of the different ways that people can develop chronic fatigue. And then about almost 20 years ago, again, this is another long story, but I started my own business. And but I think I've always known that in addition to being a wellness professional, I've realized more and more that I'm also a content creator in addition to a business owner. Now, I also do coordinate with other businesses. I work for startups, and I've done I've been an independent contractor with people. But I've also been doing social media for a really long time, pretty much ever since it came out, starting with MySpace. And so I've been creating content and working with social media. I do also have training at the master's level, not only in counseling, but also in digital marketing. So hopefully I can be of some help to you today. I do want to also say that burnout is on the rise. I've done a lot of research lately on holistic well-being in the workplace. And so before in my research, I was definitely noticing that chronic fatigue, of course, we've a lot of us have been aware of it for a while, in terms of maybe energy or chronic illness. But did you know that not only is chronic fatigue on the rise now, also in the workplace, but burnout is also on the rise. So, and they can often be linked together. They're not necessarily always the same thing. So burnout can be the result of many, many different situations, including if you're feeling burned out from having a chronic condition, but it's most often tied to kind of overextending yourself. And that's what we're going to get more into today, is kind of that feeling of overextending, maybe really giving so much of yourself and maybe not factoring enough downtime in or self-care time that you can start to feel literally burned out, or kind of like that metaphor of burning the candle at both ends. So I'll dive a little bit deeper into that very soon in terms of some really clear strategies on how you can not only either minimize burnout or even prevent it, or how you can kind of bounce back from it, hopefully. Sometimes, again, if you have developed chronic fatigue in addition, which can be linked to burnout, but it can also be linked to other chronic conditions. That can be sometimes a separate conversation, but a lot of these tips I'm going to give you can also help with that as well. A little bit more about my background. So, like I said, I'm an English major. So not only did I start to get into the natural foods industry, but I do have a degree an undergrad degree in English, and then I went on to work in the natural foods industry for a good 7+ years. And I was a buyer and a broker, and I went to a lot of the trade shows. I went to a lot of trainings on natural health and alternative health. And I also worked with integrative pharmacies. And, so again, I'm someone who really likes to find the best of everything from all worlds, whether that's natural health, integrative health, even modern medicine. And I really started to piece together a lot of research, not only from the trainings, but also when I went to grad school later on in counseling. When I was writing my book, I came across a lot of research about not only potential causes of chronic fatigue, and a lot of it also did address burnout, but some of them solutions. So I found solutions not only in my natural foods training and experience and kind of on my own, but also in research. So again, there's so much that I would love to be able to share with you, but today we're going to focus again kind of on how to avoid burnout or to bounce back from it or minimize it while you are also working in social media. Again, whether that's through your business or as an influencer, business owner, or maybe you contract out to other people and help them build out their social media channels or create content for them. I'm going to probably share also a little bit of one of my channels. I'm on a lot of the social media sites. I've been doing Facebook for ever since it came out. So I have really established groups and pages on there. And then I've also been branching out into Pinterest and Instagram. But I have to say that YouTube, that's the channel that I'm going to show you today in terms of content. I'm finding that really a great space to be in as well. But again, so let's focus a little bit more on some of the steps that you can take to avoid burnout so that you can really maximize your content creation. And then I will dive a little bit into kind of what content creation looks like for me and how I approach it holistically, not only to avoid burnout or minimize it, but also kind of how I come from creating content in a very holistic way. And that includes being a role model. So let's start with that one. When you're, whatever type of content you're creating, there's energy that goes into that. And I really do feel like the person who is consuming your content on any level is picking up on the energy that's put into it. So the more that you can take care of yourself, the more that your content is going to come across, I believe, in a more holistic way or a more integrated way. So on that level, it can be really beneficial to take care of yourself because your content will probably be more clearly communicated to people, which can make a big difference. I have learned that as an entrepreneur and a business owner, and also as a content creator and author, that communicating clearly is huge. It's one of the biggest factors in what resonates with people. And of course, messaging has a lot to do with it as well. And if you can take care of yourself and also factor in your own well-being, I believe that your communication is going to come across a lot clearer and your messaging is going to be a lot more clear and probably well received by whoever's consuming your content. So some of the biggest ways that I have found to kind of minimize not only burnout, but also chronic fatigue is, let's talk about some of the kind of, they might seem like pillars of well-being and self-care, but they really are super important. And I know that the term self-care can be thrown around a lot. However, and maybe it sounds a little bit fluffy. However, it is a really foundational way of taking care of yourself. And, self-care is a practice, and it's a practice like anything else, that it's something that we have to do consistently in order for it to work for ourselves. I hope that you can come to a place where you can start to look at self-care and some of these different ways that you can avoid or minimize burnout that will become second nature to you, almost like brushing your teeth. So one of them for sure is, let's talk about managing stress, because if you can manage your stress, that most definitely is going to lessen burnout or improve it or avoid it. And it will also help you sleep better. So managing stress during the day in particular, and I know sometimes that can be really difficult to do if we have deadlines, but keep in mind again that one of the ways that burnout can manifest is by overextending ourselves. And I believe that that is deeply tied to stress. So, and some of that has to do with mindset in terms of how we think about how we have to show up for ourselves and others. But again, if we factor in our own well-being into the day and factor in breaks, that not only is going to minimize stress, but again, will also help you sleep better. But you might actually find that you're more productive. None of us can go straight through the day, and especially when it comes to creating content, and especially for something like social media. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, and again, I don't know what your circumstances are, but what I find with social media, there can be a lot of eyes on the content that you create. There can be a lot of people consuming your content. And again, if you are creating content from a more relaxed state where you have taken care of yourself first, it's again kind of it's going to translate better, but not overextending yourself and kind of managing your stress throughout the day. Managing stress is part of self-care. Self-care is an umbrella term, so stress management is definitely one of them. Other ways you can manage your stress beyond maybe taking breaks throughout the day is exercise can also help really manage stress. And again, I know it can be difficult to factor in exercise, but a lot of self-care practices, again, we have to prioritize them just like we would any other part of our day. A lot of us maybe prioritize other people or our family or work or our partners beyond ourselves, but remember to factor yourself into your day. Remember to factor your well-being into your day. Exercise is a really great way to manage stress and kind of mitigate it. It can lower your adrenaline levels, kind of lower cortisol, and kind of keep everything more in check. I personally like to either take little walking breaks or yoga breaks or even get outside whenever I can, because there are, for me, and also the research has shown that even taking like a nice stroll in nature lowers your stress levels. Kind of being exposed to the greenery or wherever you are taking a walk in the fresh air and the sunshine. I also like to think of kind of breathing in like that deeper fresh air and kind of being even exposed to maybe the soil that you might find if you're, let's say, you're maybe more out in a natural setting. Like for instance, I like to go forest bathe in a park that's close by. There has been research that has shown that that can even improve your immune system, not only from the exercise itself, but also all the exposure that you're getting to sunlight and fresh air and even soil and things like that. I like to think of oxygen as a nutrient. So again, you can factor that in more by exercising more. And so exercise is not only good for stress management, and also if you think about it, if you are able to get outside, it also is really good for your spirit, your mental well-being. And think about this, you could also maybe factor in meeting up with a colleague and take a walk with them, or meet up with a colleague and go to a cafe and take a break. Do something that isn't where you're just on your computer all the day creating content or working on your business all day. Factor in breaks in different ways. Not only is this really beneficial for kind of taking the break off of that sort of maybe even impulse to keep giving and giving and creating, but it is also really good for you on so many levels. So I want to address a couple of those topics on a little deeper level. So again, some of the major factors here that can help you to either avoid burnout or minimize it, or kind of keep it in check more, are managing your stress. Now, the other two that I started to bring up are exercise. And then when I mentioned meeting with a colleague, that is a community part of well-being, the social part of well-being, which can be really, really important. And I know a lot of us are, if we're working from home, or a lot of us these days are working remotely, sometimes we don't necessarily have as much social interaction. And so it actually is really good for relieving stress to interact with other people. It can be great for brainstorming. It's just great for it can be great for your mental health. your emotional well-being. So maybe think of ways that you can kind of factor in, again, meeting up with a colleague, take a walk, meet up with a colleague at a cafe. That can have multiple benefits for you in terms of kind of minimizing burnout. And also, it's really good for you on so many other levels. And then one of the other major factors I was talking about is exercise. So exercise not only manages stress, but it actually can help you sleep better. And sleep is one of the other kind of major topics that is really, really important, because the better we sleep, the deeper that we sleep, that is most certainly going to help us create that resilience, and bounce back more, and even recover from feeling burned out, or even from having chronic fatigue and building up those energy levels. So I know a lot of us are not sleeping well these days, for many, many reasons. But exercise is definitely one of those that can help you sleep deeper, along with managing your stress and eating well, which I'm going to get into in a little bit. Nutrition. That's kind of the other major kind of topic that can help you avoid burnout or minimize it, is nutrition, which I'll get to next. But let's talk about sleep a little bit more, because it's so important. I think a lot of us, because of maybe severe stress, started having sleep issues during the pandemic. And as far as I can tell through research, people are still having that problem. It also might be work related. And again, I don't know what your certain circumstances look like, but a lot of us do experience a lot of pressure, whether it's personally or professionally, and that can make it more challenging to sleep. But again, let me emphasize some of the reasons why sleep is so important. First of all, they're showing more and more that when you sleep deeply, first of all, your brain is kind of being cleaned. And if you don't reach that deep sleep phase, that's kind of where that brain fog feeling comes from. So deep sleep is super important. And some of the best ways to get to deep sleep are managing stress throughout the day. Eating well can really help. Good nutrition, kind of making sure you get those really good vitamins and minerals and enough carbohydrates, so that you can create that serotonin, which turns into melatonin, and that can help you sleep deeper. And also creating what's called sleep pressure. So again, exercise can help with that. And it doesn't have to be a lot. I know that sometimes we can struggle with, like, oh, I feel like maybe I cannot exercise as much as I want to today. And I do know, since I do work with people in the chronic fatigue and even CFS communities, that sometimes people cannot exercise at all or very little. Again, I would encourage, everyone has different circumstances. You always have to do what's best for you. If you are able, even something like gentle walking, or even deep breathing, or some gentle stretching, or even gentle yoga can help, even Tai Chi or Qigong. The more that we can build up what's called sleep pressure, which does often come from kind of using our body throughout the day. And again, that's going to be different for everybody. That sleep pressure can help you sleep deeper. So again, there are many factors that can help. There are also certain supplements I like GABA can kind of help slow down your brain waves. I like valerian. So there are a lot of things that you can do to help you sleep deeper, but some of the bigger ones are managing stress, doing what you can to exercise throughout the day, and then nutrition. So let's talk about nutrition a little bit, in terms of how that can kind of fortify your body and even improve energy levels, and kind of help minimize or avoid burnout. One of the biggest ways I see nutrition working in terms of its relation to energy and burnout and even chronic fatigue is in fortifying your body, like I was saying, and kind of building up your body's resilience, meaning your body's resilience to kind of those factors that can come in, like stressful factors, whether they're from work or from your personal life, work demands. The more your body has that sense of resilience, which also, of course, comes from sleeping well, and also having that emotional and mental support, and even physical support from other people, that social well-being factor. But in terms of nutrition, I think, I know it's easy we live in a modern world where food in many ways has been processed a lot and sort of, kind of taken out of our hands in some ways. I personally had to learn how to cook. I had to teach myself. Fresh food always makes a difference. And I was mentioning earlier that, if you can really fortify your body and make sure you're getting those vitamins and minerals from real food, fresh food, that can make a difference. Nutritional deficiencies can take a while to develop, and so they can take a while to correct, but it is possible to build up your reserves and build up your body again through nutrition over time. And in terms of energy, what I like to think about in terms of nutrition and even things like stimulants, and I'll talk about that just a little bit because I think I've definitely noticed this to be an issue, not only for myself, but I think for most people that are looking for energy and kind of looking for ways to manage deadlines. I think a lot of people turn to coffee and stimulants. But what I always like to say is first think of fortifying your body, support your body through nutrition, support your body through stress management, support your body through self-care, support your body through doing what you can with exercise or getting good sleep or getting that social support. And then you could couple that with, I like lower levels of stimulation. You have to kind of find what works for you. But I always say, first think of supporting, then stimulate your body. So now I'm someone who's pretty sensitive to caffeine. I'm also very sensitive to alcohol, for instance, and like I mentioned, prescription drugs. So I've really had to find mostly natural and alternative ways to kind of deal with all of those different topics. In terms of stimulation, like I can only handle very, very small amounts of caffeine, whether that's from coffee or green tea. I have found certain products that work for me that way, but I have to have very, very small amounts, but they can help me. I like some other things like coffee berry, acai, DMAE, things like that as well. But again, and I'm also a huge fan of superfoods. A lot of them are very nourishing for your body, like spirulina, wheatgrass. And also what I learned in my natural foods training and experience for all of those years is that herbs are considered food, and herbs usually have a lot of great properties in them and nutrition in them that can be really beneficial during the day and also for evening support. And, even again, alfalfa is another superfood that's great more toward the evening because it has a lot of minerals in it. And spirulina is chock full of B vitamins and protein. And so wheatgrass is very energizing, and valerian, that's an herb. Some of the other things I was just mentioning are more superfoods, green superfoods. But if we circle back to herbs, valerian, for instance, is a great herb. So it's, again, considered food in the natural foods industry. And it actually has natural GABA in it. So it can help you sleep and kind of calm your mind down. And there's a lot that you can do. And I like to think of things very holistically. So try not to think of just one thing that's going to make a difference for you in terms of avoiding burnout or minimizing it, or even keeping it at bay. Try to think of doing several things together synergistically that are going to have that effect of giving you that upper edge and helping you reach that tipping point of well-being. And if you can fortify your mind, body, and spirit, you're going to do better in terms of avoiding burnout. So I'm going to talk a little bit about content, just because I love to create content, and I create primarily wellness content. And again, like I said, I've been doing it for a really long time. Not only do I do a ton of social media, I've been very fortunate. I started, pretty much right when my Facebook came out. I started before that with MySpace and kind of got my feet wet. And then a friend invited me to Facebook. And at the time Facebook started, I was just starting to write my book. I have a major book out that took me 10 years to write. So that almost the entire time I was writing it, I was also building up my social media presence on Facebook. And then, like I said, I started venturing into other sites. On Facebook, I developed a page that has to do with chronic fatigue support. That's the name of it. And I originally started it to promote my book when my book came out. I did not know it was going to take me 10 years to write my book. And you know what? I really gave myself it takes a lot of intention and willpower and fortitude, yes, to write a book. But I also gave myself the grace and a grace period to take my time writing it. And again, I really do think that that makes a difference. But I did create a page on there to help promote it, and it started taking off. I think when it comes to content creation, you want to find like the right niche that not only speaks to you, but also speaks to other people. And once you find that niche, people will tell you, because you're going to get feedback from them, because people will start commenting and responding. Then you can kind of tailor that content for your audience. I did recently just do a master's level class in digital marketing, and it was fascinating, and I learned so much. And there really is there's something called social listening, where I think is super important, where you really want to, again, kind of slow down. And yes, it's great to create content, and you might be doing it for, again, several different reasons, but make sure you're listening to your audience, because that can really increase engagement and reach and all those really important kind of KPIs that people look for, whether it's you or your business or whoever you're working for, or whatever your situation is. So I'm going to share actually my YouTube channel, if I can get my screen share to share here. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, wish me luck. Share screen. Okay. Okay. Let me find the right tab here. All right. I'm going to go to this one. And I'm going to show you my channel really quickly. My channel is called Wellbeing TV. And I've been, there's a lot down. There's a lot I could say about, again, I have much more reach on Facebook. However, I'm finding YouTube to really be kind of a very abundant universe. So, and I'm really hoping you can see my screen here. Oh, good. Okay, I see it on there. I don't know if I'll be able to look around very much on it, but again, since my YouTube channel is called Well TV, and I focus on well-being, again, I find it very, very important to create content from a more kind of relaxed point of view. And I am a little bit of a perfectionist. So, sometimes I find myself wanting to churn out content, but I have to tell you that it's really, really wise to, again, pace yourself, because again, that's where a lot of burnout comes from, is not pacing yourself. And there's a lot more I could share on that, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight into the fact that I do create a lot of content, and I am on a lot of the social media channels, and I absolutely love doing it. And I'm not going to stop anytime soon, because I see so much opportunity with it. And there's so much more I could say about content, but since we're focusing more on kind of the wellness aspect of it, I'll stick to that. But I would definitely, if you are a content creator or whatever you're doing with social media, I say kudos to you for putting yourself out there. If you're working for someone else, kudos to you for securing that role. And I think there's, I feel like the sky's the limit when it comes to social media and content. And again, I would just encourage you to take care of yourself along the way. It's going to reflect in your content, and I think your content will be better for it. And I personally believe, and I do think that this is also true in terms of metrics, it's going to, if you take care of yourself and slow down, and it's okay. You're going to actually be more productive when you take care of yourself. It's going to reflect in your reach, engagement, and all of that good stuff that comes along with social media and the things that we look for in terms of content that's being shared on social media. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope some of this content today helps you, and I wish you all the best on your journey. And thank you so much for listening again to this summit. And it's really lovely to meet you all virtually, and I wish you nothing but the best on your journey. Whatever it is that your role is in this big, beautiful social media multiverse that we're all living in here. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.